you like what you heard, I've got some books to sell. I can also sign your books if you brought your books. So thank you all for coming again. My goodness, it's too far away. My goodness. Yeah. So, I was born in Scotland, which is wholly irrelevant to all of this, except to my family. Because if you go back hundreds of years in my family, everybody is from Ireland, particularly the northern and western part of Ireland. A town called Derry or Londonderry, and then across the border into the county Donegal, which is the very northwest corner of Ireland. And down a little bit on the west side to Sligo, County Mayo. You go back hundreds of years and everybody in my family was born in that area, except me. So I began life as an outsider. We didn't stay in Scotland for very long. We quickly moved down to Clitheroe in England and then near Liverpool, third move. And then we moved to Derry, which is where my parents were from, where my cousins and aunts and grannies and uncles and everybody lived. And that quickly, I realized that was home. And it always has been. I always called Derry home. We lived there for a couple of years before packing up and heading out across the ocean to Rexdale, a little town near Ontario in Canada, and then to Brampton, another town in Ontario, Canada, and then back across the ocean to Derry for a couple of years, and then back across the ocean, this time on a plane, to Montreal, Canada for a couple of years, and then out to the west coast to Seattle, and then eventually here to Milwaukee. And that was all before I was 12. So I lived the outsider's life as a child and understand it and really empathize with it. And the struggle of the outsider to find connection, to find a place, to find his people or her people, that's always really resonated with me. That's always been a really interesting struggle for me to think about. And I think it's really part of the human condition. We all want to be part of something. We want a place where everybody knows your name. We want a place where we feel comfortable and at home. Kind of the flip side of that is the idea of community. And community I've always thought about too, and how we find and how we make community and how we build community. I've always been really fascinated with that. It is what I think, again, part of that human condition. That's our all desire, our need to belong, to feel like we're part of something. Is all about longing for community. So the plight or struggle of the outsider, the wish for community. Two of the main themes that really resonated with me as I sat down to write. And I think about, you go back to the start of COVID, you remember what that was like when COVID began and the world shut down. You know, we all packed up our offices, we went home, restaurants closed, malls closed, athletic leagues shut down, the world stopped, and we all were in the isolation of our homes. And I think that really made me think more about the power of community and our desire for community. Because even, if you remember, even then, we found ways to experience community. You know, we had a socially distanced outdoor Thanksgiving with our kids, participated in Zoom cocktail parties and Zoom work parties. We found ways, such as the drive, I think, to feel part of something, to feel part of a community. So those themes have always really resonated with me. About 13 years ago, in a garage somewhere here in South Milwaukee, I don't remember the street, I picked up a little tiny puppy from a crate in a garage and held it in my hands. And it was a little bear cub of a puppy with a round, plump, warm puppy belly. And I held this puppy up to my face and was immediately in love with that dog. We named her Grace and brought her home, and within a day or two, realized that there was nothing graceful at all about that dog. So she became Lucy. And that was the first dog I ever had in my life. And Lucy taught me a lot of stuff. I realized that dogs are great teachers about how you experience life and how you live in the moment. Dogs don't worry about the past, they're not thinking about tomorrow. Dogs are in the present here and now. And I think Lucy left too early at 7 with cancer, but another dog came into my life soon after that, a mini border collie named Molly. And on walks with the dogs and spending time with the dogs, you realize that they have a way of seeing and experiencing the world that is really valuable. We, in our rush to get somewhere, to get to the next appointment, the next thing, to buy the next thing, to watch the next thing, we never seem to slow down and really experience the moment. You walk a dog around the block and you learn to experience the moment. Dogs are fantastic teachers. So now we're up to 3 issues. The individual, the outsider, the value of community, and the educational value and spiritual value of a dog. And then I think the other thing that's always resonated with me is Donegal. The pictures on the last screen here are all pictures of County Donegal. If you haven't been, it's probably one of the most beautiful places on earth. My mother moved back to Ireland in 1980. My sister moved back in 2000, so I was the only one of my family left here in the States. And I would go back regularly, every couple of years. And on all of these trips, one of the highlights, one of the frightening horrors and highlights of every trip was bundling into my Uncle Adrian's car with a thermos of tea and a tin of biscuits, and we would set off to drive around Donegal. My Uncle Adrian was a lifelong bachelor. He was a fussy, fastidious, very high nervous energy guy. No watch could run in his arms. He would stop every watch he wore. He had such energy about him. And he was a horrible driver. But he was probably the dearest soul of a man I've ever known. He was an incredible man. And he knew everything about Donegal. He had grown up on his weekends when he was a young man. He would pack his kit, get on his bicycle, and just head out to Donegal for the weekend. So he knew every space. He knew every old historic site. He knew who had farmed on that land before the present farmer. He knew everybody. And driving around Donegal with Uncle Adrian was just definitely on those drives I fell in love with Donegal. It's breathtaking scenery. It's very harsh. But a gorgeous countryside, and the people are terrific. I think when you live in a place like that, where even today they probably have hail and sleet on the coast, you learn to be very accommodating and flexible. So dogs and Donegal become the next 2 themes. Maybe 7 or 8 years ago, online, I was on Instagram, and I'd probably done a search for hashtag Donegal or something like that. And I came across an account of a fellow who lived in Donegal, in Falkara. And he posted pictures of his border collie. He traveled around, went on hikes. It looked like that's all he did was hike around Donegal and take pictures of this dog. But they were now 2 of my favorite things, dogs and Donegal. So I followed him, and over time, James and I became friends and chatted and talked a few times. James' social media accounts have really caught on. He's got a huge following around the world now. He produces an annual calendar. I have some copies here to hand out tonight. And